Hello, I'm Gus Downing, publisher and editor of the D&D Daily, and this is the LP News Network. Today we have with us Jake Wilson, an area loss prevention manager with a major retailer here in the United States, and Dave Irello with the San Diego Police Department's Detective Bureau. David, how are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
David, I understand that the two of you were critically involved in the recent box stuffer crew bust here down in San Diego. And what can you tell us about it?
Well, the case began in the end of 2008 when at one of our San Diego Organized Retail Crime Alliance meetings, Jake and another retail loss prevention person came to me and directed me towards my attention towards this crew that was starting to pop up in San Diego and possibly in the southwest of the United States as well. Based upon some excellent investigations that Jake had done, he was able to identify a eBay store that was potentially being used as a fencing location for this particular crew. Over the course of the next 4 months, I worked exclusively by myself with the San Diego Police Department, trying to find some background on this investigation and the crew members involved. And then in March of 2009, I was able to start working with some investigators, some special agents from the FBI, based upon the size and scope of this investigation. And then over the next 24 months, with the assistance of Jake and other loss prevention managers, and the FBI and myself, we were able to track this crew's activity across 24 states to the tune of $6 million. And the way they did that was a box stuffing scam, which is a traditional booster bag or boost box situation where they would take merchandise out of a box in a store. They would, like say a big box retailer, they would go in and take a car seat out. They would take the car seat out, lay it on a shelf, and then fill that box up with merchandise, personal electronics, personal hygiene items, to the tune of $3,000 to $5,000 per box. And then they would buy the boxed item and leave the store. So now they've paid $60 or $70 for the box, but they've now recovered $3,000 to $5,000 worth of stolen merchandise. And they would do that consistently over the course of several days, to the tune of $50,000 to $60,000 per weekend. And the way they were so successful was they were based locally in San Diego, but they would travel across the country, and we had them, as I stated earlier, across 24 different states.
How many were in the crew?
There were 7 identified members of the crew.
And how long did they operate?
We have them back on video as early as the beginning of 2008, but we believe this crew was acting for at least 5 or 6 years. We were able to track a lot of their activity using eBay and PayPal, and their ProAct team has been very successful in helping us work with them and trying to track this particular crew, keep track of financials, keep track of activity, and they were able to work really well with us in trying to map out the sophistication of this crew.
So they played a critical role in helping you resolve the case?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good, good. Can you tell us a little bit about the profile? I mean, when they would go into a store, you know, how many of them would go in there and what would be their methods? I mean, what would they do in the store?
Well, this particular crew was very successful because they had a very distinct set of roles that they played. The main crew member would typically direct what items they wanted to steal. They would pick up any old box. They could pick anything from a car seat, like I said earlier. They've taken shredders, they've taken microwave ovens, anything about a medium-sized box. And then they would go through and shop the store, essentially looking for lots of stolen or items that they want to steal. The crew leader would direct who was taking what, who each person was stealing, who was working as a lookout, who was looking at buying the box, because they separated all the roles so that no one person was doing more than one item at a time. And then the buyer, once the box was full of merchandise, it was left in a cart, and then the buyer would come in and buy that cart item and then walk out of the store with it.
So it took you 2 years to put all this together?
It took a lot less than that to actively investigate the case, but the prosecution of such a complex case has taken a little longer than what you would traditionally see in a small 10 or 15 case series. We're talking more than 250 cases across the country, 24 states. Trying to work that consistently with the Attorney General's office or the U.S. Attorney's office becomes much more complex. So the active investigation was much less, and it was well known what was going on. It's just bringing it to fruition and prosecution was a little more complicated than other cases.
And it started at the San Diego ORCA.
Yes, it did. As it was a direct result of the San Diego Organized Retail Crime Alliance and the meetings that we've been holding since 2007.
Now, you mentioned $6 million as a hard number. What's the soft number? How much does everyone really think they got away with?
I would speculate that it's closer to $10 million. $6 million is what we can significantly say as far as value-wise, retail value. But as we all know, if you consider the rule of threes in law enforcement, it would be $18 million, but I think that would be a little too high. I think $10 or $11 million over a course of 5 years would not be an unreasonable number.
Which probably makes this particular case the biggest case of 2011 in retail.
I would think so, yes.
How many retailers were involved?
Well, we know of 6 hard and fast victims that were, retailers that were being victimized. We know of others, but one of the biggest issues we have is when you have so many retailers involved, so many cases over so many different states, coordinating those cases it becomes much more complicated. And what I have found is when you have LP partners like Jake and other big box retailers who have really well organized and very structured LP departments, it's easier for them to track individual instances. They can track it back to a crew that we've been working, and then they're a lot easier for them to kind of culminate all the evidence and information that we need to make a case. So we know, of course, there's going to be much more retailers than the 6 that we know of, but those 6 are the most solid that we have.
Jake, can you tell us a little bit about your involvement and how you got involved in the case?
Sure. In about 2008, I identified a crew of people that were coming into our locations and performing a box stuff scam. And during that process, I had been monitoring some accounts on eBay. I go through and kind of look for our type of product on eBay and find sites that are typically selling that type of merchandise. And at that point in time, I kind of put 2 and 2 together where the type of product that was being taken from this crew was actually showing up on the specific eBay site. At that point in time, we had started to get together with the SD Orca meetings, and I had brought some information to Dave and showed him the information that I had, showed him the eBay site, and while I was there, another retailer said, hey, wait a minute, I'm looking at this same crew. Put 2 and 2 together, and then Dave kind of ran with the case with us, and we continued the investigation from there.
So as Dave said, this really came about kind of as a result of the San Diego Orca program.
Absolutely. It did.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
How long did you work on it as well, Jay?
I probably was working on it for about 3 months prior to bringing it up to Dave, because I was trying to put everything together and be a little more concrete with my investigation. And obviously, I've worked through for the last 3 years on it as well.
And obviously, the PROACT team at eBay worked very closely with you on it.
Absolutely. We requested information and got great data from them, and I was able to confirm some things along with Dave about the items that were showing up on the eBay site, as well as the ones that were being taken from our locations.
They talk about ORC being a gateway crime. Was the crew involved in other criminal activity, other issues that your investigation showed?
Our investigation shows it was primarily an ORC crew, and they made it their business to do that. And they were hitting 10 to 25 stores on a weekend, $50,000, $60,000 on a weekend. Frankly, I don't think they had time to do anything else.
And they were going all over the country?
Yes, we have them in 24 states, which means, of course, they were probably in many more than that. But we have them in documented cases across 24 states.
Were they violent folks? I mean, are they violent offenders?
None of them have any none of the cases that we have investigated on this particular crew, on this particular series, showed any sort of violence.
And I say that because obviously a lot of the LP executives watching this, working in the single store atmosphere, I mean, you run into a crew like that, it can be a dangerous situation for them.
Well, yeah, if push came to shove, if this crew was cornered, I don't suspect that they wouldn't commit violence to get away. But I think that this crew was so organized and so successful that they didn't put themselves in those situations. I think that the LP people get into the more violent confrontations with those people who maybe they're organized, but they're a little more desperate, maybe a little less organized, maybe a little less consistent in their roles. And so those are the ones that feel cornered, and then they will lash out. I think this crew would have been violent in a case-by-case basis to try and get away, but this crew did not show a penchant for violence. No.
Good. And as it relates to, did it involve other cases, other crews? Did they interact with any of the gangs around the country?
No, to the best of our knowledge and during the course of our investigation, we saw that this crew was working primarily independently. They were so successful that They were very tight-lipped, very tight with their organization, and they did not want to branch out too much on other participation, because I think they realized that their success was a direct result of their organization.
Yeah. What suggestions would you have? I mean, having worked this case, what suggestions or advice would you give to that retail LP manager in the single unit store out there?
The primary two things I would suggest is documentation of the incident as it occurs. A lot of times, as a police officer, we get training in the academy. We write reports. They have headers. They have documented goals and expectations of what our reports are supposed to be. Yet I see and have seen that with LP managers or loss prevention people sometimes, there's no fluidness to the reports. It's just a general recollection. But a lot of times you can't go back and say who specifically wrote that report. And if, when you have a case like this go to trial a year and a half down the line, to try and recollect all these items for an individual loss prevention person is going to be a little more difficult if the reports aren't very tight and very well scripted out. And the second thing is communication amongst your regions and amongst your districts. I think Jake was so successful and has been so successful, as have the other LP people I've worked with, because of their consistent communication across their own spectrum of retail company employees. So Jake calls somebody in Chicago, calls somebody in Florida, I know that he can communicate the data back to him in a cohesive manner. I've had experience where some LP partners can't seem to look beyond their county or border jurisdictional areas, and that would be one of the biggest drawdowns to a big investigation like this.
So strong written skills, strong verbal skills, and consistently working on your partnership skills.
Yes.
That's the message.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to talk with you today. I want to congratulate the both of you on a heck of a case.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.